Okay, so Mr. Pancakes, today let's talk about a little movie that we saw over the weekend called Venom: The Last Dance. And
Just a little movie.
just a little movie. It only had a budget of $120 million,
Oh, geez.
which is not bad if you really think about it.
I'm sure you're going to tell us the number, how well it performed over the first 2 weekends for it.
Oh, let me tell you something. I don't have them in front of me right now, but I will tell you that the last time I checked, that movie has made worldwide $300 million, which it has beaten Madame Web, and I believe it also beat what's that movie that The Rock was in?
Oh,
Come on.
not the new Christmas film that's coming out.
No. When he was Black Adam.
Oh.
Yeah, it beat Black Adam. So yeah, anyway.
I know. I thought you were talking about recent movies.
It is a recent movie. It came out last year, no? Anyway, so a little rundown about this movie. This movie is basically the last of the trilogy. It is the final song in this Venom universe, I guess you could say, right? And I hate to say it. It's sad to see it go, but I don't think anybody's really gonna miss it.
It's a film that was made in a weird, awkward place. Like they try to make it its own thing in a Marvel character in its own Sony verse, Venom verse, whatever you want to call it. But then they do that scene that only went by the wayside, the after credit scene of at the end of Venom 2, where he gets sucked into the MCU, but he has no part in the movie with the events of that movie, only to appear in the after credit scene, and that leads back into the beginning of this movie, where he's back in the same bar with the same bartender, but he's back in his own world. So that, we got teased with,
And that's literally the first 3 minutes,
Right.
2 minutes of the movie. So basically, this movie is.
I think this movie gets heat or controversy, if you want to even call it that, because there's no Spider-Man connection.
Okay, we'll get to that. Hold
okay.
on, we'll get to that. Let's just give a rundown of the movie, right? So,
Right.
real simple. The movie starts off, like you said,
Back in Mexico.
Back in Mexico. And eventually, Venom has to go back to. What did he say he was doing? Oh, he had to go back to New York. He had to go hide in New York because the whole world is looking for him because of all the murders that have been happening because of the other symbiotes from the other 2 movies.
And he got pinned, and the murder or the blame is getting pinned on Eddie Brock for killing Patrick Mulligan, supposedly.
Right.
Or at least you think he's dead.
And lo and behold, we find out 2 minutes later that Patrick Mulligan is not dead. He has just been taken to an underground facility under Area 51, which they mentioned 15 times that Area 51 is going to get decommissioned. And because of that, we're destroying everything in Area 51.
Only to be in another secret underground bunker in Area 55, I think it was called,
Yeah,
whatever
which
the number was.
yeah.
So to throw the public off its scent, we're going to call the infamous location of Area 51, where Roswell supposedly happened in the 1950s.
Right.
But we have secret
Underground, 5 layers lower. It's
one level. Like,
Okay.
we're closing.
we're closing this one so the public can stop coming here, but we have another base underneath. But shh, don't tell nobody. It's a secret.
But you could tell they really played into the alien concept of the character. That, the symbiote comes from outer space. So let's study that. Let's capture samples of them, study of them, of course, weaponize them.
Well, that's the whole idea, right? The
Of
whole idea
course.
is to weaponize
Because the
something.
military is running the site.
Right.
That's where Patrick Mulligan was being held captured, and he was injected with his own symbiote. Of course, that's a callback to the comics, where I think the name of his symbiote character
Toxin.
is Toxin. Exactly.
Toxin, yeah.
They really they really played into the military aspect. Oh, Eddie Brock is let's make Eddie Brock a fugitive so he could come to us. We can hack into the cameras if he gets spotted.
Yeah, let's just go. Oh, we spotted him in Vegas. Let's all go to Vegas. Anyway, so, and then not only do we have the US government chasing after Eddie Brock slash Venom, we also have found out that because the symbiote has saved Eddie Brock, it has created some sort of codex in him, and which basically solidified, let's say, the symbiote with the human host. And because of that, it has now awakened Null, who is in another galaxy far, far away. No, not that Star Wars. And now he needs to get out. And because he has found the codex, he sends his little generic, I was going to say rejects, but his little genetic, I don't know what they're called.
They're alien slash predator rejects that were used in those movies. Like, oh, let's use them in the Venomverse.
Like, so it's... The story sounds so crazy, and watching it, I don't feel like it was crazy, but at the same time, I don't feel like it was a cohesive, strong storyline.
And this villain was basically held capture, so you could tell might be bigger plans for him down the line, even though this is supposedly the last movie.
Right.
This was a villain, if you go to the source material, that was from a newly established villain that only came in the late 2010s.
Yeah.
But they established him as the creator of the symbiotes.
Right.
And so, like, oh, we can use that since they have the rights to certain characters. And I didn't even realize this in the credits. Do you want to say who was behind or who played the role?
Of course, we're going to tell people who the role was. So for a whole minute and a half, maybe pushing it 2 minutes, we have none other than Schmeagol himself playing Null. And that is none other than...
Andy Serkis.
Yep.
The one and only, who is the director of Venom 2, but of course very famous for his motion capture roles, hence Lord of the Rings.
And you know what the sad part is?
Yeah, it was a waste.
We wasted Andy Serkis.
Well, maybe
for this role.
He was limited to whatever his schedule was, whatever project he's working on, but he still wanted to. It was confirmed by Kelly Marcel, who's been a writer on all these movies, who did the directing herself. She said it was known since Venom 2 that he was going to come back and play this character,
which is perfectly fine. I got no problem with that.
You know, I think what they were trying to do, they were trying to establish him almost in a Thanos-like character, like somewhere in space, but instead of on a floating rock, turning around to the camera, he's held in a prison that
has his minions that they can leave, but he can't.
Right. And then he has his portals that he can send, but he's, locked in or handcuffed in a way because his own kind turned against him because they realized how dangerous he was. Like the villain, if like Marvel had their hands on this villain, I think they could do something with it. But obviously Sony is doing everything possible to hold on to the rights to certain characters.
Here's my issue. I feel like I'm not going to say like all three of these movies were garbage.
No, they weren't. I really like the first one. I don't care what anybody says.
No, that's perfectly fine. I agree with you. I like the first one too. My issue is that I feel like Kelly Marcel, what she did was she went onto Wikipedia, she read everyone's bio, and then said, hey, I can write a screenplay for all three of these movies. And because she did that, I feel like we've lost a lot in the storyline of Venom. Yeah, people were saying you can't do a Venom movie without Spider-Man. Where I kind of agree. Watching the first movie, you can totally do a Venom movie without Spider-Man. But doing a second and a third movie without Spider-Man, I think that was the issue with this series. At least in the second movie, they could have introduced him, even just as a swinging by the city or something to that extent.
That's the biggest head scratcher. They have this working relationship with Marvel and Disney, and when they briefly ended the relationship over dispute, who gets what share, and then they eventually made peace, they said, oh, we have the one hero that could be shared in two universes. I mean, or they could at least hinted at it. What were you and Johnny talking about as far as like, okay, Eddie Brock's in New York. What could they shown?
Yeah, because we saw this movie with Johnny 64, and if only Johnny was here to say what he wants to say, because
Rant and rave.
yeah, he probably would have ripped Sony a new hole, because he hated it, because he's like, there was so much potential, so many missed opportunities to just, we don't even have to have a big thing come and happen. We could just literally have Spidey swinging by, saying something, not even like, 30 seconds of being on screen, and it probably would have been better. But unfortunately, we didn't get that.
And what Spider-Man did you want that you said to us?
I think Andrew Garfield would have been the better of the three to show up for this series.
And as much as I love the Tom Holland character, and he's the current Spider-Man, he's been in for years, I could see your point of view on that, because he was the Sony Spider-Man. Well, he was the last Sony Spider-Man. Toby had his time. Of course, he came back for No Way Home, but I think that would have been cool and brings Andrew back in, and Sony has their own Spider-Man in a way in their verse, since they technically do have the movie rights with a working agreement with Marvel. I think that would be cool to see.
I totally agree with you. The thing is, though, let's get back to this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think as the last hurrah for Eddie Brock and Venom? What do we think of Tom Hardy?
I think he did a good job what he was given. Like, he tried to embrace the character as much. He definitely left his fingerprints on it behind the scenes as well. I just can't get it out of my head that you guys said, this Eddie Brock wouldn't work with the MCU Spider-Man. But just focusing on this movie, I think he did a good job for what it was, like the buddy cop, conflict between like the good parts of this movie, and throughout this trilogy was the interaction between Eddie and Venom, and how they work together and how they bicker.
Well, yeah, it was like think of it as a Wish.com version of Deadpool and a Wolverine. And I say that why? Because it's a buddy cop flick, right? And also, they're going from one place to the other, and shenanigans happen on the way there.
Or the dark comedy version of Jekyll and Hyde.
Sure, I could
like
see
the
that.
monster has his scary elements. He wants to eat human heads. He's an alien, but he has a sentimental side. He bonds with Eddie. He bonds with Peggy from the deli. By the way, did you think that scene was necessary?
Oh my God, what a waste. What a waste. Poor Peggy Lou, right? Mrs. Chen, for those who don't know. Mrs. Chen, what a wasted character that was in this movie. Like the stupid dancing, like, okay.
I think
rant time, ready?
Okay, go ahead.
Here's what I hate about this fucking series. They made Venom so comedic. Like, I can understand a little quip here and there, but you don't need to have Venom being stupid. We don't need a stupid Venom. Like, that's how I feel this movie, all three of these movies were. That's my only issue with it. They made him not even childlike. It was like words that cannot be said, because then I will be,
we would be kicked off of YouTube.
Yes. So it's like, why are we seeing this like dumbification of the symbiote? This is an entity that can take over the whole, universe, and he's got the brain functionality of a freaking 2-year-old. You know what I mean?
I guess they were just trying to make the character more relatable.
But that's not being relatable. That's being stupid.
And use the MCU playbook of action with comedy, and the character has to be funny, and in this case overdo it so much.
That's my issue with this film. It went into the comedic aspect way too much, where it did not need it. And then it turned Eddie into like if you thought the Venom symbiote was stupid, Eddie was it was bad. It was bad in that sense. Other than that, it had some nice action scenes.
Right.
It had some, nice side characters like Chiwetel Ejiofor, Dr. Mordo for those. I mean, not Dr. Mordo.
Mordo from Doctor
Mordo
Strange.
from Doctor Strange. And
Oh, as Rex Strickland's the name of his character.
yeah, Strickland. And then you had like the doctor with the one arm, Dr. Teddy Payne. Like these people were good side characters, but you saw too much of them, and you didn't see enough of Venom, or rather Eddie Brock either. Like we went too into side stories that we technically didn't need, and we didn't need Venom going into a dance routine with Mrs. Chen just so he could get caught by these stupid little henchmen aliens that can zero in on his location when him and Eddie turn into Venom.
And then there was a side quest where Eddie meets that nice family. The dad is obsessed with aliens. Like he got rid of their regular lives, packed it into this van, traveling across the desert. I thought, okay, they had a nice scene with Eddie when they find him lost and hungry, and they feed him and they travel him, drop him off in Vegas. I didn't realize they would have even more screen time.
Yeah.
And they would factor into the big scene at the end. I mean, they were great characters. I mean, they were fun characters, but I felt like they were a bit overused.
Yeah, there were like that family itself did not need to be there at all. Honestly.
Like they were heavily used for the comedy scenes.
Well, one for the comedy scenes, and two, it's like, we need Eddie and Venom to save a family, so let's put them in this stupid, crazy cockamamie situation where child services would have came after Martin the father and taken away all his kids because of this. Like, it went. I want to say like this was it made me feel like I was watching a 90s action film, but it didn't. Storyline wise, I felt like a complete idiot wrote this, and that's not that's the only thing that I have an issue with this movie.
I do admit I did chuckle with like, oh, we're looking to see aliens, and then Venom, who's inside Eddie at this point, said we could show them right now. Like
Yeah.
when they're at their campsite.
Yeah, like I feel like this movie was trying to be too much for the kids, right? I feel like,
Wasn't the first one rated R?
I don't remember. Was it?
What was it? Its main focus was to get that older, but maybe they dumb it down so they could get more of the family element, like the wholesome scenes with Eddie traveling with the random family with that they're in the desert for.
The movie was PG-13. All three of them have been PG-13. But I feel like this movie was more going towards the G.
Yeah.
Because it went too childlike. And because of that, I feel like it ruined the character. Other than that, I mean, the movie was semi-enjoyable. I can't say that it was dog shit. It wasn't Madame Web.
No, it wasn't.
110%. It wasn't Morbius. 110% it wasn't. It was, leaps and bounds over those two movies. But again, the basis of the character is not even watered down. It's like, let's just say they're Venom and maybe, throw in a couple of things and say, oh, hey, Venom. Then bring in the big bad, and we'll bring Null in this movie, and everyone's going to be like, ooh, Null, yay. And then what? What is the point of Null at the end of, during this whole movie, right? We've got nothing on Null. What is he going to do? He's going to show up in the Craven movie? Is he going to show in the Spider-Man Noir TV series on Amazon Prime? Is he going to show up in Tom Holland's Spider-Man? We don't freaking know.
Yeah, is he going to show up in one of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, plural? Like, is he going to be one of the main villains? Is he going to open up? Is that a way to bring back Tom Hardy as Venom and Eddie Brock?
It's, I'm sorry.
But like, I kind of did enjoy the action sequences at the end. Did you like the multiple Venoms? How the symbiotes?
I saw that coming. I didn't feel like it was. I thought it was overused because we've done this in every single of these movies. All three of these movies, this has happened in.
Let's bring in another character with the symbiote.
Yeah. Who is Venom going to fight? Oh, let him fight another symbiote. Why? There are so many other people, things, anything that he could fight. Let's bring in another symbiote. Is the creative, juices not flowing in your head and you can't figure out what else you want to put in? Like, I don't understand.
Well, it's over and done with. That's all they wrote, but I don't think this is the last time we'll see Tom Hardy playing this character. I just have this feeling. I mean, I'm not reading no spoiler or anything. There was no big announcement. Like if they do the multiverse, it, who knows if Tom Harlan meets his own Eddie Brock, but more of the asshole character that's more close to the comic version. That Peter Parker accidentally ruins his life, and then he develops this grudge against him, and a symbiote that the drop from the end of No Way Home connects with that Eddie Brock, but not that we don't that Tom Hardy's going to be playing him. However, who's their version of an Eddie Brock?
Possibly. All I'm saying is, I'm sorry, Kelly Marcel, but you should stick to movies like Cruella and 50 Shades of Grey, not Venom. Leave the comic book movies to somebody else.
And give
Now, I'm not saying like your directing was bad. I liked it. I don't think it was bad. I just think your screenwriting needs a bit more polishing.
and it's just I just feel like I still stick by what I said in the shirt. Like if you need to kill 2 hours on a Friday night, go see it. But at the same time, it's hard to shake that stigma that it's not. You can't call it Spider-Man's spinoff or it's a major Spider-Man character without Spidey appearing himself. And it's like, oh, let's do our own thing.
Right, exactly. Well, the question goes out to you guys. What do you guys think? Did you see it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you glad this series is over? Or are you thinking, you know what? I liked them. I enjoyed them. They were just popcorn flicks to me, and I would like to see more. Let us know in the comment section down below.